What's up? Tom Froman here, and let's talk about the Rule 5 draft and my rankings of the Twins I think most need to be protected from that Rule 5 draft. So as you can see on the screen here, I've got a couple of tiers, but these are also players ranked out. And let me explain what we're looking at here. So those top 4 guys are who I consider locks. Jose Miranda and Royce Lewis are stone cold, absolute 100% locks, no question about it. Jose Miranda, the Twins Player of the Year, a guy who should have been considered for any kind of, across in all of minor league baseball, Player of the Year. Just an incredible season out of him. Royce Lewis, obviously the former #1 overall pick, super athlete. Unfortunately, he's coming off of ACL surgery, but coming into next year healthy, so that's the great news. The next 2 guys I would consider virtual locks, like 95%. I can't imagine Josh Winder or Cole Sands being left off the roster. They will definitely get scooped up in the Rule 5 draft if they would. So that's why I think they're certainly going to be added to the 40-man roster and protected from that Rule 5 draft. A couple of guys who had very, very good performances last year. Unfortunately, Winder got hurt. He did have a 2.63 ERA in 14 starts. He reached AAA, so was on the doorstep of the big leagues. But it sounds like he got healthy, not healthy enough to return to action, but he was throwing at the end of the year, so hopefully he'll have a normal offseason, come into the year healthy. Josh Winder, he had a 2.46 ERA in 80 and a third innings in AA. He has a 2.58 career minor league ERA now. He's just been a performer his whole minor league career. Those are the guys I'm most confident. The next guy up here, Blaine Enlow, is recovering from Tommy John surgery, unfortunately, and the highest that he's reached is high A, so I could see that there's a potential that they leave him off. However, the 60-day injured list comes back as soon as spring training starts. If you're like me and are expecting a lot of deals to happen later than usual, which is really a trend across Major League Baseball among the last few years, that things are getting done later. I think this year will be even more so due to all the labor issues and things like that. So I don't think that having to add Enlow and wait until spring training to then move him onto the 60-day IL, where he doesn't count against your 40-man roster, so that opens up a whole nother roster spot. I think they should do it. I would put Blaine Enlow on the 40-man roster. Whether the Twins will, that's why I have him in the second tier, that I think it's possible, but I'm not so sure it's a lock. A big part of their strategy of the 2017 draft when they took Lewis #1 overall was to try to save some money of their draft pool to allocate later in the draft, and the main guy that they signed with that extra money was Enlow. So it'd shock me if this front office, that was the one that orchestrated that whole draft, would potentially open up the door for losing such a guy that they created an avenue to get. But again, it's certainly not a lock. My next guy will probably shock some people, be surprising. Trey Cabbage. Absolute beast. Trey Cabbage, 27 home runs in 108 games. Only 23 minor league hitters had more home runs last year than Trey Cabbage. To give you a sense of his power, he had an 882 OPS. The strikeouts are a concern, no question about it. 36.4 K percentage last year. That's not going to cut it. But a giant breakout year. Unfortunately for him, there's so many other left-handed hitting corner outfielder types in this system. You think about Alex Kirilloff, Trevor Larnach, they're both left-handed hitters. There's more other guys like that. So I could see the Twins not valuing him in terms of their picture internally. But if you look at externally, there are a lot of teams that are desperate for any kind of offense. And if you take into consideration there's a chance that the NL might have the DH, this is a guy that some of those teams could find very attractive, teams that are having a hard time finding power guys. The Twins are having no trouble at all finding power right now. So I could see him being a casualty. If he doesn't get protected, I could see the logic behind not having Trey Cabbage protected. He should definitely get selected in the Rule 5 draft. You don't see guys performing like that in the high minors coming up for free, just for free. And if it doesn't work out, there's hardly any risk if you're a team drafting it, but you just return them. You spend a little money on them and you return them. So I think Cabbage should get drafted if he's left unprotected. Next guy in this tier, Yunior Severino. Again, this is a guy I think worth investing in, but I don't know that they are going to find room. You only have so much room for these guys. He had a 372 on base percentage last year. His OPS was 907 after being promoted to Cedar Rapids, and he's still only 22 years old. This was the guy that he had his contract. He originally started his career with the Braves. His contract was voided because their former GM violated a bunch of rules with international signing periods, so he was a free agent. The Twins signed him up, and he's been in the system since then. So a very talented guy, a second baseman, third baseman. So kind of similar to that Cabbage discussion, that's a position of great depth for the Twins right now. You know, they've got Donaldson, they've got Arise, they've got Polanco, they've got Miranda, who plays those positions as well. Just a ton of guys fitting into those two spots, so that's the reason why I could see the Twins not valuing him. But he's another guy I could see potentially being taken in the Rule 5 draft. However, what's working against him is he's only made it to high A, whereas Cabbage has made it to double A. And now here is a tier of guys that I want to mention. They're worth calling out, who I don't think are going to be added to the 40-man roster. And I wouldn't expect to be drafted in the Rule 5 draft, but you never know. Chris Vallimont, maybe this is a surprise, though, that I have him so low. I do think they should give him a look in the bullpen. I think he'd be very interesting out there, but the performance is what it is. He had a 6.13 ERA, a 1.64 whip this past year. I just don't think that that's somebody who you are making room for. Some of the bad teams in baseball are just so bad. So I could see somebody picking him up and throwing him in their bullpen and just saying, hey, let's see what happens. You know, again, there's very little risk for the team drafting the guy. So throw him out there, see what happens, and if he sticks, he sticks. If he doesn't, you just return him back to the Twins. You spent a little cash, that's about it. Jordan Gore, what a year. What a fun story he was. 2.39 ERA, a sub-1 whip, and an 11.7 K per 9 in his first full season of being a pitcher. Converted from an infielder, ended up in Double-A, pitching very well. It would hurt to watch him go. He's got tremendous stuff. So I could see somebody just saying, hey, let's take this guy and see what happens. Being a reliever, everybody needs relievers. There are some teams that have horrible bullpen situations. So I could see potentially somebody taking a chance on him, but with such a short track record, maybe he's more likely to pass through. Mark Contreras, an organizational all-star for the Twins basically this year, 828 OPS in 95 games with the Saints. Like Cabbage, he's a left-handed hitting outfielder, so that kind of is working against him in the Twins picture, but guy who's reached AAA, pretty all-around game. You know, he's a little bit more athletic than a guy like Cabbage, but he also had a strikeout rate in excess of 30%, if that sort of working against him a little bit there. Ryan Mason's the guy I wish the Twins would have got up and given a shot to see what he could do at the major league level. 2.67 ERA between AA and AAA. He's like impossible to hit home runs against too. So keeps the ball in the ballpark. Also had a 10.5 K per 9 last year. I'm not thinking they're going to add him. I don't know. He might get taken, but hopefully he slides through because I think he's a nice bullpen depth option for this team. Andrew Bechtold, he had a nice breakout year, hit 18 home runs, but he's 25 in AA. This past year, cannon for an arm, very good defensive third baseman, and they're giving him some looks at catcher, which is really interesting. Michael Helman, also a breakout guy, but he's also 25 and has only reached high A, so a tier lower than Bechtold. I think he's interesting because he's played second base and some center field now. And again, 19 homers last year, and he does a pretty good job at controlling his plate appearances. Doesn't strike out too much and draws quite a bit of walks. Jeferson Morales is maybe my favorite prospect in the entire system. He catches, he plays left field. He had a 370 OBP last year, which is nuts. And he had 12 homers in 96 games. The guy's 5'8", just crushing, 370 OBP with 12 home runs in 96 games. Gotta love it. And then that versatility of catching and playing outfield. And then Osiris Herman is not a guy I've seen pitch a ton. He struggled when he reached high A. Cedar Rapids this year with a 4.55 ERA. But his strikeout numbers are very impressive. 13.79, or K per 9, Throws hard, very talented 22-year-old. Don't see a lot of risk of losing him, but again, there's almost no risk in claiming these guys in the Rule 5 draft. So those are my thoughts. I got the 4 stone cold locks of getting added to the 40-man, the 5th in Enlow, who I would add if I was the Twins, and then Cabbage is sort of the guy to me that's on the brink. But either way, this is a good representation of where the Twins are. This is a good, deep minor league system. As frustrating as this past year was, as many mistakes as they made, including mistakes around who to protect and who not in the Rule 5 draft last year, You know, obviously lots have been made out of Akil Baddoo, but Tyler Wells was a really good pitcher for Baltimore when the Twins could really use pitching right now. So that stings as well. So these are big decisions that are to be made, and the Twins, you know, after last offseason, they have to get stuff right. They have to self-scout. They have to have a good offseason. That's the only shot they have at contending again, and it kind of starts with this sort of 40-man roster decision. So the Rule 5 draft isn't until December, which the current CBA expires on December 1st. So who knows even like what the timeline is going to be for this year or what. So there could be some weird stuff going on, but I'm assuming it'll happen eventually. Is what we're just going to operate under that assumption, but it might be delayed due to all of this collective bargaining agreement stuff. If you enjoyed this video, please check out my most recent prospect list. I'm going to put a card on the screen here. Thanks for watching.